So often when it comes to MAT, we get focused on the technical stuff. We get focused on all the process stuff when we try to describe it to people. When in reality, what really needs to be thought of with MAT is, well, I go to see my MAT practitioner to make sure that my muscles are working well, my joints stay moving well, that I have the range of motion, the flexibility, and the strength that I need to keep doing the things that I want to do. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back everybody to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we are coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And today we want to talk to you about one of our specialties here that helps people exercise, and that is muscle activation techniques. Now with MAT, it can be such a fantastic precursor to exercise to make sure that your body's tuned up, ready to go. It can also help to keep your body tuned up while you're exercising so you can continue to work out and continue to enjoy the things that you do most. But in order to know whether or not you need MAT, we want to talk to you about 4 early warning signs that your time for an MAT tune-up may be right around the corner.
So today we're going to be talking about symptoms and things you might be feeling or experiencing in your body that tell you that MAT may be a good fit for you. And if this is the first podcast or MAT podcast you've listened to, we actually talk about MAT once a month, and we encourage you to go back to the podcast called What is MAT? And in that podcast, we talked about what it is. But today, we're going to be talking about how do you know when you need it? Now, it would be so great if every podcast we could dive back into what is MAT, because if you didn't listen to that one, you're probably rolling your eyes thinking, dang it, I wish I could just hear it right here. The problem is that then we'd never move on to another topic. So today we're going to be talking about how you know what's going on. And you know what? The signs and symptoms that tell you that you need MAT are what resonate with people. The science behind MAT and our understanding of what MAT is doing doesn't really resonate with people, because not a lot of people think about muscle contraction and the neurons connecting between your brain and your muscle. So you really are getting the juicy stuff in this podcast, even more than in the last podcast.
Yeah, so often I like to use the analogy of like a dentist. If you go to the dentist, you wouldn't think about, okay, the dentist is sticking all these tools in. Well, maybe you're thinking that, but if you're trying to explain to somebody what gets done at the dentist, you wouldn't be saying, oh, well, you know, they pull out this instrument and that instrument. You wouldn't say all the technical terms, and you wouldn't describe exactly what happens every single step of the process. You'd say, well, I'd go to the dentist to make sure that my teeth are cleaned, my gums are healthy, and that my oral health is in check. And so often when it comes to MAT, we get focused on the technical stuff. We get focused on all the process stuff when we try to describe it to people. When in reality, what really needs to be thought of with MAT is, well, I go to see my MAT practitioner to make sure that my muscles are working well, my joints stay moving well, that I have the range of motion, the flexibility, and the strength that I need to keep doing the things that I want to do. And that's it. And so we want to play more towards that end today and tell you about, well, what are some reasons why you might need to go see somebody that is certified in muscle activation techniques to get your body tuned up. How do you know if it's your time to get on somebody's schedule, to get in and have them kind of work through your muscular system, assess it, and address the muscles that aren't working so well? So we're going to kind of dive into that with you today. The first early warning sign that you are going to be in need of some muscle activation techniques is that you are experiencing localized tightness within your muscles. So if you wake up in the morning and your low back is tight, or your hamstrings are tight, or after you've been sitting at the computer for a while, your neck and your shoulders tighten up, or maybe when you go for a run, your calves tighten up. If you're experiencing this kind of localized tightness within your muscles, that is a clear indication that you need to go get assessed by an MAT specialist so they can figure out what might be contributing to that localized tightness. One of the predominating thought processes within the MAT community and among MAT practitioners is that there is a reason why your muscles feel tight. There's a reason why the tightness is present, and that reason is very purposeful. And a lot of times that reason can be related back to it being your body's attempt to try to protect you. Now you may be sitting there thinking, well, protect me from what? It feels incredibly uncomfortable. And I get it. You know, having tight muscles is not a comfortable thing. But so often what your body might be doing is trying to protect you from trying to use muscles that are actually too weak. And by tightening certain muscles up and limiting your range of motion, it might be preventing you from utilizing other muscles to their full extent because those other muscles aren't functioning super well. And by getting the muscles that aren't functioning well working better, so often what we see is that localized tightness starts to dissipate.
You know, one of the ideas we talk about in muscle activation techniques is that tightness is secondary to weakness, meaning that tightness might be present, but it's oftentimes present because of weakness. And a lot of times when we're feeling tightness in our bodies, we think about getting rid of the tightness, and we never think about anything else. We just think, oh, if it's tight, I need to loosen it, massage it, stretch it, blah, blah, blah. So one of the analogies we like to use that paints a really, really clear picture for people that ask us about, what do you mean like tightness could be from weakness? Imagine that there's a 100-pound block hanging from 10 different ropes. Okay. The nice thing about all these 10 ropes is that if distributed evenly, and we're going to assume that it is, each rope only has to hold 10 pounds. So each rope is not working that hard to lift a pretty significant weight of 100 pounds. Now, from stress, trauma, and overuse, some of these ropes become weaker or frayed or even cut. So let's say that half of them become overused or overstressed. So now we have 5 quality ropes holding on to this 100-pound block that's hanging from a ceiling. How much weight now are each of these quality ropes holding up? Well, twice as much. 20 pounds is on each of the 5 ropes because 5 are kind of pooped out, tired, funky, feeling not good. Now, here's the thing. The ropes that are holding on, the quality ropes, they're now doing double the work that they were supposed to be doing. They're now doing double the work that they were doing before the other 5 kind of ditched out, right? So these ropes are the ones that are overworking. These are the ropes that are now more tight. In our bodies, we might have 10 muscles that might move a certain area of our body. And from stress, trauma, overuse, and I'm going to also throw this in, underuse, some muscles become less active. Some ropes become less active, less effective, more frayed, maybe not even functioning well at all. And the ones that are left over, those 5 ropes, are now doing double the work. They are the ones that are now the tight muscles. Okay, so the muscles that are doing their job are now the tight muscles. The problem with this scene is that if you think about the box scenario, it's pretty easy to think, if I said, okay, how would you solve this problem? You say, oh, I go buy some new ropes, or, re-put the other ropes together, re-braid them or something, and attach them so that every rope can now be pulling its own weight, and every rope can now be back to holding 10 pounds. No rope will now be overstressed. That's actually how MAT treats the body. We try to find what muscles aren't pulling their weight, What muscles are causing the other muscles to have to do double time or overwork or having to be overstressed? And if we can reinstate those muscles and reteach them how to do their job, then the tightness that we feel oftentimes dissipates, not because we're actively trying to get rid of the tightness, but because the tightness doesn't have to be there. Our body's protection or protective mechanism is no longer being activated because every muscle's doing its job. So the process of MAT is this continual search for how can we get muscles to better pull their own weight so that other muscles that are causing you symptoms that we always think are the problem muscles don't have to overwork.
So if you are experiencing tight muscles throughout your body, that is a definitive early warning sign that your body is in need of MAT. Now, the second early warning sign that your body is in need of MAT is if the right side of your body moves differently than the left side, or if the motion throughout your body is not as good as it once was. So if you think about your skeleton, if you think about your bones, they should be relatively the same on the right side as they are on the left side, meaning how they are developed, how they form. Now, there might be small, slight idiosyncrasies from one side to the next, but generally speaking, we should be built pretty symmetrically on our right side and our left side, okay? What this means is from a structural perspective, we should have a relatively similar opportunity for motion on the right side as we do on the left side. Because when it comes to how well our joints can move and in what directions our joints can move, the first and foremost kind of underlying factor is, well, structurally, what are those areas of the body capable of? How are those areas of the body built? And so if we think that the right side of our body should be built relatively similar to the left side of our body, then what we should see is relatively similar motion between the right side and the left side, because structurally we have a relatively similar opportunity for motion. However, if you notice that the right side moves differently than the left side, that may be an indication that the tissues within your body that should be moving you, i.e. your muscles, are working differently on your right side than they are on your left side. And that is a clear indicator that something is going on within your muscular system, and you need to go get checked out with an MAT specialist. You need to go get checked out by an MAT specialist. Now, the other part to this early warning sign was if your motion changes over the years, meaning if when you were, say, 30 years old, and really it's kind of 30 and above. So often clients will come in, they'll be like, well, when I was 12, I could put my foot behind my head. It's like, okay, well, your body's still developing then, so that really doesn't count. Okay, when I was 12 months, I could put my foot behind my head, but I'm surely not trying to do that right now. So let's get our kind of basis for comparison a little bit more squared away. So really kind of by the time, if you look at what's happened with your body from the time you were 30 and beyond, if you've noticed a significant change in the motion capabilities of your body, then that may be an indicator that the muscles are not working as well one side versus the other. Structurally, there may be degenerative changes that happen throughout your body as you age. But again, it may not be as drastic of a difference as what you might see from somebody who's in the very, very early stages of life until they reach, early adulthood, versus somebody who's like the difference between 30 and 60, okay? There will likely be degenerative changes that happen between 30 and 60. However, if you're noticing gross changes in how you are able to move throughout your body over that kind of time span, that also may be an indicator that the muscles within your body, the tissues within your body that should be moving your bones, i.e. your muscles, there's been some change in how well they've been able to function over the last 3 decades or so. And that would be an indicator that you need to go get checked out by an MAT specialist.
So Charlie, you brought up this really cool idea of our skeleton, our bones, our joints, give us an opportunity to move. And whenever our skeleton is done moving, that means our opportunity is done, right? But what determines how much we actually can move is our muscles. And it's almost like we want our muscles to be able to allow us to move full range. But at the end of the day, the thing that has to stop us is our bones and our joints. But what usually doesn't feel that good is when our muscles stop us before the bones and joints stop us, because that means then we're limited relative to our maximum opportunity. And I think this is such a good point because, number one, everyone's skeleton is different, meaning like my skeleton is very different than yours. Mm-hmm. And if another MAT specialist came in and, checked both of our ranges of motion, they would clearly see that. But what we're saying is that, my right shoulder is very similar to my left shoulder, but my right shoulder is not very similar to Charlie's left shoulder. I mean, clearly we're both humans, so there are some similarities, but if you were to look at ourselves in an x-ray, we're going to be very different. We're going to be very different than what's shared in an anatomy book, and we're going to be very different than what's shared on, we have a skeleton here that's a model. It's going to look very different than that. So what we want to see is that the muscles are able to help guide us through as much range of motion, but while staying safe, that our skeleton can provide. And that's what always feels the best. Now, oftentimes what we fall in trap of is that we say, well, Julie, you can raise your arm all the way up. Why can't I? Well, you have to remember our skeletons are different. So we want to see that the opportunity for movement is the highest. So I was trying to brainstorm this analogy. I've never used it. So if it's the worst, Charlie's going to edit it out. And if it's the best, we'll leave it in. We'll see how it goes. So have you ever seen, so Charlie and I travel a lot. And we have very different suitcases because his is black, boring. Mine's hot pink with a bow. Okay, so, his is black and soft. Mine's hot pink and it has a hard case. It's really cool. And Charlie's has, they have got these hardcore zippers on them, right? Because, we've all seen how the plain people treat our bags. So we have hardcore zippers on suitcases, right? So Charlie's suitcase is really interesting because it zips on 3 sides. Right? So if I want to open his bag, I unzip 3 sides and then it flips open, and that's how his works. Does that make sense? My bag, it's weird. My zipper starts in the middle of the back side, unzips all 4 sides, and then opens. So I have like a 4-sided zipper, and Charlie's got a 3-sided zipper, right? But guess what? They both hold our stuff really well, and we both look at our suitcases and think, this works great. Holds all my stuff. I have 4 sides of a zipper and he's got 3. My opportunity for movement in my zipper is 4 sides. His opportunity for movement on his zipper is 3 sides. When do you think the problem is going to arise? Right? When Charlie's last side doesn't zip. His opportunity for 3 sides is there, but some function of the zipper is only allowing him to zip 2 sides. Now it's a dysfunctional suitcase. Now he's like, this is not working to my needs. So his opportunity is 3 sides, but the function is only allowing him to do 2 sides. So his function of the zipper is limiting how this whole suitcase works. And for me, if one side of mine poops out, well, I still got 3 sides, which is just as good as Charlie's, but I would start calling that dysfunctional too. Because even though I have 3 sides, which is the maximum of what Charlie's suitcase has, it's now dysfunctional relative to my opportunity of having 4 sides. So you'll always have to think, everyone's got their own little suitcases in their shoulders or in their hips or in their spine. We all have different opportunities. What we want to see is that the muscles and the function of those joints, of those areas, are as close to the optimal or maximum opportunity as they can be. So a lot of times when we're noticing limits in motion, either in general or one side versus the other, MAT is a great way to check and say, well, are you a 3 zipper kind of person and 3 is good and that's what you got and that's the best that we can do? Or are you a 4 zipper person and you're only getting 3 sides? That's the problem.
I really like that analogy.
So, good. I'm like sweating thinking, oh my gosh, was that good? Or I don't know. I was trying to think.
Thanks so much for thinking of that and sharing it. And I would also add to it that another issue that can come up is if I try to take my bag that has a 3-sided zipper and make it into a bag that has a 4-sided zipper. So if I try to force more motion of the zipper, than what's actually there. That's another tremendous issue. Not only just being able to utilize all three sides to the maximum, but if I try to make it a four-sided zipper, that would be a big issue as well. And I think we see that a lot in our practice, or at least I shouldn't say we see that, we hear about it a lot in our practice when clients tell us stories, or we see on Instagram, or we talk with people out at social events, and they're telling us about trying to do different range of motion activities, and they're trying to match their range of motion to everybody else's, and everybody else might have a whole bunch more range of motion available. And so they're trying to take their three-sided zipper, to continue the analogy, and turn it into a four-sided one. They're trying to get their forehead down to their knees. They're trying to hit that brand new pose in yoga that it seems like everybody else can do. Those create tremendous issues within our bodies because we're not respecting what our body is structurally capable of, and then we are not respecting what our neuromuscular system is allowing us the opportunity to utilize within the structural capabilities. So I think that analogy definitely works both ways with that, and I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're noticing that the right side of your body moves differently than the left side of your body, that is a definitive early warning sign that your body is in need of an MAT tune-up.
So our early warning sign number 3 is that your output on your right is different than your left, or vice versa. So your signs are different. One of the biggest functions of muscles is to contract, and usually this contraction leads to some kind of a force output of your limb, or a motion, or ability to move. So if you're noticing that one side's ability to create output or force or movement is a lot different than the other, this is a really good sign that some of your muscles are not working, because it's a direct thing that muscles are supposed to do. So a lot of times people will notice this sometimes in everyday activities, meaning like, wow, when I reach up, I can only be reaching up with my right arm because I can't handle the weight if I do my left arm. Or when I do stairs, I have to always lead with my right foot because my right leg is always stronger than my left. So these are some examples of output differences. Another easy way to see is if you're in the gym and you notice that when you're working out, one side is very, very different than the other, or maybe even just slightly different than the other. That's a good indicator that muscles are not doing their job.
Yeah, and an analogy that we like to use to kind of strengthen this point is the idea of a car, and you have an engine, and you have a battery, and you have battery cables, okay? And typically when you go and work out, that would be analogous to trying to build a bigger engine, build a bigger engine, build a bigger engine. And while that definitely can happen, in order to be able to access what the engine has available, you need to make sure that the battery's working and that the battery cables are connected. And so the role that MAT plays is making sure that those battery cables are connected. So often, if we go to the gym and you say you're going to do a split squat, all right, and you have your left leg forward and you're focusing on pushing through your left leg, and it feels pretty easy, and then you go to your right leg and it feels far more difficult. So often the predominant thought is, well, I need to build a bigger engine on my right leg. All right, I need to build up the musculature on my right leg to match the musculature on my left leg because there's this output difference. Or if I'm doing a dumbbell bench press and my right arm is smooth and my left arm is shaky, well, I need to build up the output capabilities on my left by building a bigger engine. And sometimes you do need to build a bigger engine, but sometimes you just need to reconnect the battery cables to the engine that's already there, okay? An example of this is I had a client come in, and we worked through her glutes, we worked through her hamstrings, we worked through some other of her hip extensors. And then 2 days later, I get an email from her saying that the next day she went and did a squat workout. And mind you, this was a 50-year-old woman going and doing a squat workout, and she was an experienced lifter. She said during that workout, she put on 60 pounds, 60 pounds onto the squat that she was doing for reps. Now, all we did during the session, we didn't build a bigger engine for her. We just reconnected those battery cables. So now all of a sudden she could access all the horsepower, all the torque within the muscles that she already possessed. She could actually get the benefits of all the training that she was doing and had been doing, because now all of a sudden she could access all of the contractile capabilities of the muscles that she had. So with this idea that, hey, if the output is different between the right and the left sides, that can definitely be an indicator that your muscles are in need of an MAT tune-up, because likely the engine capabilities are relatively similar one side versus the next, but the battery cables may just be disconnected on one side compared to the other. By reconnecting those battery cables, boom, immediately you're able to access all the horsepower, all the torque, and all the muscular output of the engines of the muscles that you've been building with your training.
It's really cool how quickly we see changes with that. Okay, last early warning sign, number 4. If you are having difficulty feeling the exercises that you are doing. I do want to specify that this doesn't mean feeling muscles like feeling tight muscles, because normally if you are not a normal gym goer person, then a lot of times feeling muscles is a bad thing. It means like you're having tight or achy or painful muscles. But what we mean by this point is feeling muscles contract when you are trying to use them. Okay, so there's a specificity thing that goes along with when we exercise, or at least we recommend that it is. And when you exercise, you should be feeling the tissues or the muscles that you're trying to exercise, that you're trying to challenge. So if you're unable to feel certain tissues or certain muscles, then this is a really good indicator that there's probably an issue activating these tissues, and it would be a good idea to get it checked out. Oftentimes what we hear people say is that the feelings of muscle squeezing feels very generalized, or it feels in the completely wrong spot when muscles aren't working well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when you're exercising, you should be able to feel very specific muscles squeezing in very specific areas of your body tensing, and a very specific challenge being felt through an area of your body. And if it feels more generalized, like if you can't feel your pecs specifically, if it just feels like kind of the front part of your shoulder and the front part of your torso, and just something kind of everywhere in the shoulder area when you're doing a chest press, that may be an indication that your pec muscles really aren't working that well. Now, it could be an exercise execution thing, meaning how the exercise is designed, how you are setting up for the exercise, how you are performing the exercise. All those are strong considerations as well. But if those pieces are taken care of and you're still not feeling the muscles contract in very specific places, then that may be an indication that the muscles that you're trying to get to contract don't have their battery cables connected, okay? And so with MAT, we would go in and we would try to reconnect those battery cables, get those muscles working better, so that when you go and you do your exercise, now all of a sudden you can feel all the appropriate muscles contract specifically where you're intending for them to. So there you have it, 4 early warning signs that your body may be in need of muscle activation techniques. Now, if you want to find out more about MAT, send us an email and we will send you an ebook that we've written, 20 pages full of info about MAT. Things that expand on this conversation that we just had with you today, ideas to let you know what kind of MAT client you might be, and a whole bunch more other kinds of information regarding muscle activation techniques as well. You can also find it on our website by going to our homepage and clicking where it says find out more about our services, and then just going through the different click options there to indicate that you're interested in learning more about MAT. You'll get that ebook sent directly to you as well, completely no cost whatsoever. And if you want to find a certified practitioner in your area, go to muscleactivation.com, click on the Find a Specialist tab, and you will find where in your area there are certified practitioners. Now, again, we plead you, do not go to somebody unless their name appears in that list on the website. Okay, there are a lot of people out there who are claiming to do MAT, but their certification either lapsed or never existed to begin with. So make sure if you're seeing somebody for MAT that their name is in the certified practitioners on the certified practitioners webpage, and then you'll know you'll be getting up-to-date and quality work done for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We always appreciate your attention to the messages we're trying to share. Who do you know that needs to hear this message? Who do you know that has some localized tightness, that has motion on their right side that's different than on their left side, whose output or strength is different on their right than on their left, or who is having trouble feeling the exercises that they're doing and feeling muscles squeeze in very specific places? Send this episode to them so they can learn more about MAT and find a practitioner in their area to get their body tuned up. And if you're looking for more guidance on your exercise, if you're saying, hey, you know what? I go and work out on my own, but I'm still not feeling the exercises that I'm doing, and there doesn't appear to be an MAT practitioner close to me, or I need some more guidance with my exercise. I'm going and getting tuned up by an MAT practitioner, but I need more guidance with my exercise. We have a program for you. It's called our virtual membership program. All right. And it's a way to get exercise guidance from us, exercises that are completely customized, built for your body from the ground up, and delivered in an online format for you to do wherever you work out. At whatever gym you work out at, you are able to do these exercises and get exercise guidance from us on a monthly basis. So if this is of interest to you, head on over to matschaumburg.com, click on the membership tab, and fill out the application to become part of our virtual membership program. And while you're online, head on over to iTunes. Leave us a 5-star rating and review so other people who are looking for exercise-based information can come across our podcast and find us. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. Anything else you want to say with that?
No.
Okay, cool.